And I'm joined now by Asanda Ngoasheng, political analyst, and of course our very own Mzwandile Mbeje, our political editor at the SABC. Interesting sentiment. So what Mr. Manye told us now is that former President Jacob Zuma will not be attending the State of the Nation address tonight. He says this was orchestrated. The court date coinciding with the opening of Parliament, it was orchestrated such that the former president will not be able to attend. Ms. Ngoasheng?
I think that, we must introduce Mr. Manye to the concept of separation of powers, which effectively means that it is the role of government to ensure that there is separation between the judiciary, the legislative arm and the executive. And so it actually is the prerogative of government to not make decisions based on the different arms. And so it makes sense that you could have what has happened now with the SONA happening while a judicial court case is happening, because there's supposed to be separation of powers and they're not supposed to be discussing and coordinating diaries in the way that he suggests should have happened. And I think, it speaks to the fact that Jacob Zuma and his people think that he deserves special or different treatment when ordinary South Africans are appearing in court as we speak all over the country. Why does he deserve a special date and special concessions when all he is a former president and a current leader of an opposition party in South Africa? That's all he is to us now.
Mzwai, your take on that, is that going to make any significant impact on the State of the Nation address that's going to take place here tonight? And also just in terms of the expectations, so the official opposition saying they don't expect much. What do you make of what is coming out of most of the parties and their expectations at this point?
Yes, I mean, a very good morning to you, Sakina, and the viewers. It's quite interesting, but this is the official opposition, so their status is official opposition. So basically, they must be on the side of opposing of what is happening. They have never been fans of the government of national unity. Just last week, so they've taken the SABC to court to oppose the government of national unity, because I think the MK has always been critical, characterizing it as a grand coalition between the DA and the ANC. So clearly what comes out of this is something that they are not supportive of, and it's understandable because of the fact that of the existence of the MK, it was born out of unhappiness within the ANC. So you are not going to expect that a party that is born out of the party that is governing now to then cheer what it's going to say. So I understand it. This is the official opposition, so they are doing their job. And then, of course, when it comes to the former president, the leader of the MK party, he's hardly attended some of these addresses. So, and I don't think it will have been different. One of the things that I expect will happen is that on the 11th, when the parties are getting the opportunity to now respond. Remember, the MK party as the official opposition will get that opportunity. They have actually said, in terms of communication, you will hear the real State of the Nation address on the 11th when they respond. So the reason he's characterizing it as fake, because on the 11th, when they respond, they would characterize that as the State of the Nation address.
Which is very interesting, of course. And then, of course, Asanda, in terms of the government of national unity, so this is the first time that the ANC have had to sit and quite disproportionately take input from other parties. Previously, it would have perhaps been one minister who was from another party. Now, they're sitting with a situation whereby there are several ministers coming from other parties who have different ideologies to their own, and as such, different policy directives, as it were. So how do you think that's going to play out in tonight's State of the Nation address?
Well, I honestly don't think it's going to make much of a difference, because we've seen that the ANC has been very steadfast in ensuring that the policies that are being implemented in the country are ANC policies, using their 40% majority within the GNU to ensure that NHI, to ensure that Bella, to ensure that expropriation without compensation are all going to be implemented within this 5-year period. And I'm mentioning those ones in particular because those are policies that the DA, who is their partner, had specifically expressed, opposition to. And so the fact that they've managed to push through all of those policies despite being in a GNU tells you that the ANC is still in charge. And so while they may take some kind of, suggestions from their partners, it's pretty much like the alliance partnership where COSATU and the SACP did make contributions, but ultimately what went ahead is what the ANC as the core mother body decided. And so I don't think it's going to make much difference. I do think definitely the DA, the UDM and all the other opposition parties are going to want to influence the actual speech so that it speaks to not only ANC voters, but it speaks to their voters because they are in this government of national unity. But I don't think from a policy perspective, it's going to result in a different kind of statement or a different kind of direction for the country, because ultimately the ANC still has the largest chunk of the vote and they use that, quite regularly without any fear.
And that's going to be an interesting one, Mzwai, because if you think about the other parties and they have their own constituencies who expect certain acts from them. And as Asanda says, you take the Bella Act, you take the NHI bill, which is still in discussion and still under consultation. That one is going to be a serious sticking point. And then you have the Expropriation Act as well. And looking at how the different parties have responded to this, and I'm reminded of an interview that I listened to by Rob Hersoff, where he said the instruction was given to parties like the DA and the PA to stay in this GNU no matter what. So, how do they actually maneuver this space with their own constituencies, the parties that form the GNU?
What is even more interesting, yesterday, Asanda and Sakina, we saw the DA hold the press conference to communicate what it hopes will happen, some of its inputs into the Cabinet Lekgotla. Remember, Cabinet Lekgotla basically forms what will be on the State of the Nation address to specifically maintain the identity of the party. Yes, they want to remind their voters, their constituency, to say, as much as we are part of this bigger platform, which is called the GNU, we still have our own identity. And these are some of the key areas that you must know about. So when the president speaks about some of these things, you must know that we influence that. So I remember last year in the opening of Parliament, so immediately after the president had spoken, so the people who cheered the loudest was the DA, because they said the majority of the speech or the key aspects of the speech represented what they wanted as the DA. So when I saw that press conference yesterday, I said, okay, so as much as there is this 10-party coalition called the GNU, but parties would want to maintain their independence and their identity, and that's exactly what the DA is doing. So it will be interesting. I'm actually going to be watching closely. So as the president speaks, who will be cheering the most? Is it the ANC, the DA, or the smaller ones?
And that's going to be interesting, Asanda, because remember, as we say, these parties still have constituencies to report back to. And it comes at a price, because I spoke to some people within the Democratic Alliance, and there is some tension there with regard to their participation in the GNU and also what is happening in Gauteng. That is obviously different from what is happening at a national level. So again, how do they maneuver this? How do they maintain their status within the GNU without necessarily fracturing the party?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult to do that, Sakina. I've been saying that, 2029, 2026 to an extent, but mostly 2029, it's going to be a very interesting year in South Africa, because we are seeing a strategy by the ANC they're doing what's called in business it's embrace, expand and extinguish. And that is what the ANC is doing to the DA. They are basically killing it and suffocating it by having brought it into the GNU, because its identity, as we speak, is being broken down, because people are not able to tell if you said you don't want Bella, you don't want all of these things, but now in the GNU, you are the one signing those things because it is the DA minister that signed this very same Bella they didn't want. It's likely to be a Steenhuisen, another DA minister, who signs the expropriation without compensation bill and has to go out to farms to actually implement it. So it's going to be a very interesting 5 years, and we will be interested in watching, I suppose, how the DA tries to continue to have a brand despite having gone against every brand ideal and every policy decision that they have stated previously, immediately, even just before this last election.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it. Asanda Ngoasheng, our political analyst, and the SABC editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, who is, of course, in charge of politics here at the SABC. And with that, we hope we have given you quite a bit to chew on already, because this is going to go on into the night. And, of course, SABC, especially from midday onwards, we will have you covered on all our platforms.